The snow fell heavy and fast that December morning in 1881, turning Castle Dome, Arizona into something almost unrecognizable, a place where winter had no business being but arrived anyway like an unwelcome creditor demanding payment. Willa Wright stood on the porch of her father's failing general store, watching three men on horseback approach through the white curtain, knowing with terrible certainty that everything in her life was about to change forever. She was 22 years old and had spent the last 3 years watching her father drink himself into deeper and deeper debt after her mother died of fever. The store had been prosperous once, back when Castle Dome was a thriving mining town with copper flowing from the hills and money changing hands faster than cards at a poker table. But the mines had slowed, people had moved on, and her father had turned to whiskey for comfort while the bills piled up like the snow now accumulating on the wooden boardwalk. The three men dismounted, their boots crunching in the fresh powder. Willa recognized them immediately. Silas Hartwell and his 2 sons, collectors for the bank in Yuma, who had made the 2-day journey through increasingly hostile weather to settle accounts. Her father had borrowed heavily to keep the store afloat, putting up everything as collateral including the building itself and all their possessions. The note had come due 2 weeks ago, and there had been no money to pay it. "Miss Wright," Silas Hartwell said, tipping his hat but offering no warmth in his gray eyes. "Your father inside." "He is," Willa replied, pulling her shawl tighter around her shoulders. The cold bit through her worn calico dress, but she refused to shiver in front of these men. "Though I doubt you will find him in any condition to discuss business." "We are not here to discuss," the older Hartwell son said. His name was Marcus, and he had the same hard features as his father. "We are here to collect." Her father emerged then, stumbling slightly, reeking of cheap whiskey even in the frigid air. Thomas Wright had once been a proud man, a veteran of the war who had built something with his own 2 hands. Now he was a shell, hollow-eyed and trembling. "Hartwell," he said, his voice rough. "I need more time. Just another month and I can get you the money." "You said that last month," Silas replied. "And the month before. We have been patient, right, more patient than most would be, but our patience has limits and we have reached them." Willa watched her father's face crumble. She had known this day was coming, had tried to prepare herself for it, but the reality still hit her like a physical blow. They would lose everything. The store, their home above it, every possession they owned. They would be turned out into the snow with nothing. "Please," her father said, and the words sounded like something breaking. "I have nowhere to go. My daughter has nowhere to go." Marcus Hartwell's eyes moved to Willa then, and she did not like what she saw in them. "About your daughter," he said slowly. "There might be a way to settle part of the debt." The meaning behind his words took a moment to register, and when it did, Willa felt her blood turn as cold as the snow falling around them. Her father looked between her and the Hartwells, and she saw the moment he understood as well. The color drained from his face. "No," Thomas said. "Absolutely not. I will not. You owe us $800, Silas interrupted. "A sum you clearly cannot pay. Your daughter is young, healthy, and from what I can see, not entirely unfortunate in appearance. My son Marcus has been looking for a wife. We would be willing to take her off your hands in exchange for forgiving half the debt. You would still owe us $400, but we would give you 6 months to raise it." Willa could not breathe. The world seemed to tilt and spin around her. They were discussing her like she was livestock, like she was merchandise to be traded away. She looked at her father, waiting for him to refuse again, to throw them out, to do anything except what he did next. 6 months, Thomas asked quietly. "You would give me 6 months?" "Father, no," Willa said, finding her voice. "You cannot be considering this. I have no choice, he said, but he would not meet her eyes. We will both be on the street otherwise. At least this way, you will have a roof over your head, food to eat. The Hartwells are a respectable family. I do not want to marry Marcus Hartwell, Willa said, her voice rising. I do not even know him. You cannot sell me like I am a piece of furniture. He is not selling you, Silas said, though the distinction seemed meaningless. He is arranging a marriage to settle a debt. Such things are common enough. Common or not, I will not do it, Willa said firmly. There must be another way. Marcus stepped forward and she instinctively took a step back. You do not have much choice in the matter, he said. Your father has already agreed, and as his daughter, you are his responsibility to manage as he sees fit. The injustice of it burned in her chest, but she knew he was right according to the law. She was unmarried, living under her father's roof, and therefore subject to his decisions. The fact that he was willing to make this particular decision, to trade her away to save himself, filled her with a rage so pure it almost warmed her against the cold. Give me the papers, her father said. I will sign whatever needs signing. They were in the process of doing exactly that, standing in the doorway of the store with Silas pulling documents from his saddlebag, when another horse came through the snow. The rider sat tall in the saddle, a dark figure against the white landscape, and as he drew closer, Willa could make out more details. He was young, perhaps 26 or 27, with dark hair visible beneath his hat and a long coat that had seen hard use. 2 guns rode at his hips, and he carried himself with the easy confidence of someone who knew how to use them. He reined in his horse, a big bay gelding, and took in the scene with sharp blue eyes. Trouble here? He asked, directing the question to no one in particular. No trouble, Silas said dismissively. Just private business being conducted. Move along. The stranger looked at Willa, and she saw something shift in his expression. Maybe it was the tears she had not realized were streaming down her face, or maybe it was something else, but his jaw tightened and he dismounted in one smooth motion. Seems like the lady might disagree about there being no trouble, he said. This does not concern you, Marcus said, his hand moving toward the gun at his own hip. The stranger's hands did not move at all, but suddenly the 2 revolvers were in them, drawn so fast Willa had barely seen the motion. I disagree, he said calmly. When a woman is crying in the street during a snowstorm, it concerns anyone with a shred of decency. Now, somebody want to tell me what exactly is happening here? They are forcing me to marry him, Willa said, pointing at Marcus. My father owes them money and they are taking me as payment. The stranger's eyes went cold in a way that made even Silas Hartwell take a step back. Is that a fact? He said quietly. You boys do realize that slavery was outlawed about 16 years ago, do you not? This is not slavery, Silas protested. This is a marriage arrangement to settle a debt. Perfectly legal. Legal maybe, but decent. The stranger shook his head. I think not. He holstered one gun and reached into his coat, pulling out a leather wallet. How much does he owe you? $800, Silas said, but the arrangement has already been made. No arrangement has been made until she says I do in front of a preacher, the stranger said. He counted out bills, his movements deliberate. Here is $850, $50 extra for your trouble riding out here in this weather. The debt is paid in full, and the lady is not marrying anyone she does not want to marry. Silas stared at the money, clearly torn between greed and stubbornness. It was Marcus who reached for it, snatching the bills from the stranger's hand. Fine, he said. The debt is settled. But you are a fool, throwing away good money for a woman who is not even yours. Maybe, the stranger agreed, but I will sleep better tonight than you will. The Hartwells mounted their horses, Marcus shooting Willa one last angry look before they turned and rode back into the snow. Within moments, They had disappeared into the white curtain, leaving Willa alone with her father and the man who had just bought her freedom. "Thank you," she said, her voice shaking. "I do not know how I can ever repay you." "No repayment needed," he said, turning to face her properly for the first time. Up close, she could see he had a good face, strong features marked by wind and sun, and those remarkable blue eyes that seemed to see everything. "Name is Owen Cole. I am a cattle buyer usually, though work has been slow this winter. Was heading through to Yuma when the snow started and figured I had better stop here until it passes." "Willa Wright," she said. "And this is my father, Thomas." Owen's expression when he looked at her father was considerably less friendly. "You are a piece of work, you know that," he said. "Trading your own daughter to cover your gambling debts." "They were not gambling debts," Thomas protested weakly. "They were business loans." "Does not matter what they were," Owen said. "You do not sell your children to pay them. What kind of man does that?" Thomas had no answer. He turned and shuffled back into the store, leaving Willa and Owen alone on the porch. The snow continued to fall, and the temperature continued to drop. "You should come inside," Willa said. "Get warm. It is the least I can offer after what you just did." Owen hesitated, then nodded. "I appreciate that. My horse needs stabling, though." "There is a livery stable down the street," Willa said. "Old man Henderson runs it. Tell him I sent you, and he will give you a fair price." Owen led his horse away through the snow, and Willa went inside, her mind reeling. Everything had happened so fast. One moment, she had been facing a nightmare marriage to a man she despised. And the next, she had been saved by a complete stranger who had casually handed over more money than most people saw in a year, without asking for anything in return. Her father was behind the counter, pouring himself another drink. Willa walked past him without a word, too angry and hurt to speak. She climbed the stairs to their living quarters above the store and sat on her narrow bed, trying to process everything that had just happened. When Owen returned 20 minutes later, she had composed herself somewhat. She came back downstairs to find him warming his hands by the stove in the corner of the store, the snow melting off his coat and hat. "I made coffee," she said. "Would you like some?" "That sounds mighty good," Owen agreed. She poured 2 cups and handed him one, their fingers brushing briefly in the exchange. His hands were rough, work-worn, the hands of a man who made his living with physical labor. They sat in the 2 chairs near the stove, and for a moment neither spoke. "Why did you do it?" Willa finally asked. "You do not know me. That was a lot of money to spend on a stranger." Owen took a long drink of coffee before answering. "My mother," he said finally. "She was in a similar situation when she was young. Her father tried to marry her off to settle his debts. My father, who was passing through town, saw what was happening and stepped in, paid off the debt, and gave her the choice to make her own decisions. She chose to marry him a year later, but it was her choice, made freely. They had 30 good years together before he died of pneumonia. She passed last spring." "I am sorry," Willa said softly. "Me too," Owen said. "But the point is, I know what it looks like when a woman is being robbed of her choices, and I know what kind of man stands by and lets it happen. I am not that kind of man." "What about the $400 you just lost?" Willa asked. "That is a fortune." "I have more," Owen said with a shrug. "Been saving for a while now. Was planning to buy land, start my own ranch instead of just buying cattle for other people. Still can, just will have to save a bit longer now." Willa felt something tighten in her chest. This man, this stranger, had just delayed his own dreams to save hers. "I will find a way to pay you back," she said. "I do not know how yet, but I will." "I told you, no repayment needed," Owen said firmly. "Consider it a gift." "That is too much to accept as a gift," Willa protested. Then consider it an investment, Owen said, in making sure one more woman in this world gets to choose her own path instead of having it chosen for her. They talked for hours that afternoon while the snow continued to fall outside, and the town of Castle Dome transformed into a white landscape that looked nothing like the desert community it usually was. Owen told her about his work, about the ranches he had visited and the cattle he had bought and sold, about the years he had spent learning the trade. Willa told him about the store, about what it had been like before her mother died, about her dreams of maybe leaving someday and seeing the ocean. "Never seen the ocean myself," Owen admitted, "but I hear it is something special." "I read about it in books," Willa said. "It must be wonderful, all that water stretching out to the horizon." The snow fell all through the afternoon and into the evening. Her father stayed mostly out of sight, drinking in the back room, and Willa found she preferred it that way. She was still too angry to look at him without feeling sick. Owen ended up staying for dinner, a simple meal of beans and cornbread that Willa prepared in the small kitchen upstairs. They ate at the tiny table by the window, watching the snow pile up in the street below. "I do not think I have ever seen snow like this in Arizona," Owen said. "Been here before a few times, and it is usually dry as bone." "It happens sometimes in winter," Willa said, "but never this heavy. People say the winter of '77 was bad, but I was too young to remember it clearly." "Where will you go?" Owen asked. "I mean after this. Can you stay here with your father?" Willa's hands tightened on her fork. "I do not know," she admitted. "I do not know if I can stay with him after what he was willing to do, but I do not have anywhere else to go and I have no money of my own." "You could come with me," Owen said suddenly, then looked surprised at his own words. "I mean, not like that. I am saying it all wrong. What I mean is, I could help you get somewhere else if you want. Somewhere you could start over. I have contacts in Tucson, people who might need help in their businesses, respectable work." Willa studied him across the table. He looked uncomfortable now, like he was worried he had overstepped, but there was genuine concern in his eyes. "Why would you do that?" she asked. "You have already done so much." "Because you deserve better than this," Owen said simply. "Better than a father who would trade you away, better than a dying town in the middle of nowhere. You deserve a chance, same as anyone." Something shifted in Willa's chest, a feeling she could not quite name. This man, who had known her for less than a day, seemed to see her more clearly than her own father ever had. "I will think about it," she said quietly. The snow continued through the night. Owen had taken a room at the boarding house down the street, one of the few buildings in Castle Dome still doing decent business, but he came back to the store the next morning to check on Willa. She was sweeping snow off the porch when he arrived, and the sight of him made her realize she had been hoping he would come. "Morning," he said, stamping snow off his boots. "How are you holding up?" "Better than yesterday," Willa said honestly. "I have been thinking about what you said last night, and I think I would like to take you up on your offer," Willa said, "about helping me get to Tucson, if the offer still stands." "It stands," Owen confirmed, "but I should be honest with you about something." Willa felt her stomach tighten. "What?" "I have been thinking about it all night, and I realize I was not being entirely truthful about my motivations," Owen said. He looked uncomfortable but determined. "When I paid that debt yesterday, it was not just about helping a stranger. When I saw you standing there, crying, facing down that awful situation, I felt something I have not felt in a long time. Maybe ever. I know we just met, and I know this is going to sound crazy, but I would like to get to know you better, properly. With courting and respect and all the things a woman deserves when a man is interested in her." Willa stared at him, the broom forgotten in her hands. Her heart was beating very fast. "You want to court me? If you would be willing to allow it," Owen said. No pressure, no obligations. If you just want my help getting to Tucson and then we go our separate ways, I will respect that. But I would be lying if I said that was what I was hoping for. A smile tugged at Willa's lips, the first genuine smile she had felt in weeks. I think I would like that, she said. Getting to know you better, I mean. Owen's answering smile transformed his whole face, making him look younger and lighter. Yeah, Willa confirmed. Though I should warn you, I am not an easy person to know. I am stubborn and opinionated, and I have very strong feelings about the proper way to organize a general store. Good thing I have no opinions on store organization then, Owen said. This might work out after all. They spent the next 3 days together while the snow slowly melted and Castle Dome returned to its usual dusty self. Owen helped around the store, fixing a wobbly shelf and replacing some boards on the porch that had been rotting for months. Willa found herself watching him work, admiring the easy competence with which he approached every task. Her father stayed mostly drunk and mostly out of sight. The few times Willa did see him, he could not meet her eyes. She knew she should feel sympathy for him, should make some effort at reconciliation, but every time she tried, she remembered him agreeing to hand her over to Marcus Hartwell, and the sympathy evaporated. You are going to have to decide what to do about him eventually, Owen said on the third evening. They were sitting on the porch, watching the sunset paint the desert sky in shades of orange and pink. I know you are angry, and you have every right to be, but he is still your father. I know, Willa said, but I do not know if I can forgive him. How do you forgive someone for being willing to sell you? I do not know if you can, Owen admitted. Maybe you do not have to forgive him. Maybe you just have to decide whether you want any kind of relationship with him going forward and on what terms. You think that makes me a bad daughter? Willa asked. That I am considering leaving him here alone. I think it makes you a person who knows her own worth, Owen said. And I think your father made his own choices. He has to live with the consequences. Willa leaned against Owen's shoulder, and he put his arm around her. They sat like that until the stars came out, bright and clear in the desert sky. The next day, Owen made arrangements for them to travel to Tucson. He sold some equipment he had been carrying, bought supplies, and arranged for horses. Willa packed her few belongings into a single bag, taking only what she absolutely needed. When she told her father she was leaving, he barely reacted. So that is it then, he said, staring into his glass of whiskey. You are just going to abandon me here. You abandoned me first, Willa said, the moment you agreed to hand me over to the Hartwells. I am just finishing what you started. I did what I had to do, Thomas protested weakly. No, you did what was easiest for you, Willa corrected. You could have refused, you could have fought for me, you could have done 1,000 different things. But you chose the path that saved yourself at my expense. I will never forget that. She walked out without looking back and found Owen waiting with the horses. He took one look at her face and pulled her into a hug, letting her cry against his chest until she had no tears left. Ready? He asked when she finally pulled back. Ready, Willa confirmed. They rode out of Castle Dome as the sun rose over the desert, turning the sand and rocks to gold. Willa did not look back at the town or the store or the life she was leaving behind. Her eyes were fixed firmly forward, on the horizon and whatever lay beyond it. The journey to Tucson took a week. They traveled at an easy pace, camping under the stars at night and talking about everything and nothing during the day. Owen told her stories about the places he had been and the people he had met. Willa talked about the books she had read and the dreams she had kept secret for fear of being told they were impossible. Nothing is impossible, Owen said. Some things are just harder than others. They were camped by a small stream on the fourth night when Owen reached across the fire and took her hand. "I need to tell you something," he said. Willa's heart began to race. "What?" "I am falling in love with you," Owen said simply. "I know it is too soon, and I know we barely know each other, but it is the truth. I think I started falling the moment I saw you standing on that porch, refusing to back down even when everything was against you. You are the strongest, bravest person I have ever met, and I would count myself lucky beyond measure if you would consider a future with me." Willa could barely breathe. "Owen, I do not know what to say." "You do not have to say anything," Owen said quickly. "I am not asking for an answer right now. I just wanted you to know how I feel. No secrets, no games, just honesty." "I think I might be falling in love with you too," Willa whispered. "It scares me how fast it is happening, but I cannot deny it. When I am with you, I feel like I can breathe for the first time in years, like anything is possible." Owen moved around the fire to sit beside her, and when he kissed her, it felt like coming home. They held each other under the stars, and Willa thought that maybe, just maybe, her life was finally beginning. They reached Tucson on a warm afternoon, the city spreading out before them like a promise. It was bigger than Castle Dome by far, full of people and possibilities. Owen had contacts with a family named the Rodriguezes, who owned a large mercantile business in the center of town. He introduced Willa to them, and within an hour, she had been offered a job helping to manage their accounts and inventory. "You are a miracle worker, Mrs. Rodriguez said, looking over the sample ledger Willa had created to demonstrate her skills. "When can you start?" "Tomorrow if you need me," Willa said. She found a room at a respectable boarding house for women, and Owen took a room at a hotel nearby. They saw each other every day, usually for dinner after Willa finished work. The Rodriguezes were generous employers, paying her well and treating her with respect. For the first time in years, Willa felt like she was building something that belonged to her. 2 months after arriving in Tucson, Owen asked her to take a walk with him after dinner. They ended up at a small park overlooking the city, the lights beginning to twinkle as evening fell. "I have been thinking," Owen said, taking both her hands in his, "about the future. About what I want my life to look like." "And what do you want it to look like?" Willa asked. "I want it to look like you," Owen said. "Every morning when I wake up and every night when I go to sleep, I want to build that ranch I have been dreaming about, and I want to build it with you by my side. I want to face every challenge and celebrate every victory with you. I want to grow old watching sunsets with you. Willa Wright, will you marry me?" Willa felt tears streaming down her face, but they were happy tears this time. "Yes," she said. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." Owen kissed her then, and Willa thought about how different this moment was from that terrible day in Castle Dome when Marcus Hartwell had tried to claim her against her will. This was her choice, made freely, and it felt like the most natural thing in the world. They were married a month later in a small ceremony at the church, with the Rodriguezes standing as witnesses. Willa wore a simple dress of pale blue that Mrs. Rodriguez had helped her sew, and Owen wore his best suit with his hair slicked back and a nervous smile on his face. "I, Owen Cole, take you, Willa Wright, to be my lawfully wedded wife," he said, his voice steady and sure. "I promise to honor you, respect you, and love you all the days of my life." "I, Willa Wright, take you, Owen Cole, to be my lawfully wedded husband," Willa replied, her own voice strong. "I promise to stand beside you, support you, and love you with everything I am." When the preacher pronounced them husband and wife and Owen kissed her, Willa felt a joy so complete it almost frightened her. This was real. This was hers. No one could take it away. They spent their wedding night at the hotel, and for the first time, Willa understood what it meant to be truly intimate with another person. Owen was gentle and patient, taking his time, making sure she felt safe and cherished. Afterwards, lying in his arms, Willa thought about how her life had changed in just a few short months. "What are you thinking about?" Owen asked, running his fingers through her hair. "How lucky I am," Willa said. "How close I came to losing everything and how you saved me." "You saved yourself," Owen corrected. "You were the one standing up to those men, refusing to accept what they were trying to force on you. I just gave you some options." "You gave me everything," Willa said. "A chance at a real life, freedom, love, everything that matters." Owen kissed her forehead. "We gave each other everything," he said. "That is what love is." They stayed in Tucson for another year while Owen saved money and scouted locations for the ranch he wanted to build. Willa continued working for the Rodriguezes, putting away her own earnings until they had enough to make Owen's dream a reality. They found the perfect piece of land about 40 miles north of Tucson, a beautiful valley with good grazing and a year-round stream. Owen bought 200 acres and immediately began making plans for the house and barn and corrals they would need. "It is going to take years to build this into something profitable," Owen warned Willa as they stood on their new land, watching the sun set over the mountains. "Years of hard work and sacrifice. Are you sure this is what you want?" "I am sure," Willa said. "I have never been more sure of anything in my life." They built a small cabin first, just enough to keep them sheltered while they worked on everything else. Owen hired a few ranch hands to help with the heavy construction, and Willa threw herself into creating a home. She planted a garden, sewed curtains for the windows, and organized their supplies with the same efficiency she had brought to the Rodriguez Mercantile. The first year was hard. They worked from sunrise to sunset, building fences and breaking horses and clearing land for crops. There were times when Willa was so tired she could barely move, but she never complained. This was theirs, built with their own hands and their own sweat, and that made every aching muscle worth it. By the end of the first year, they had a proper house, a barn, and 50 head of cattle. By the end of the second year, they had doubled their herd and hired 2 permanent ranch hands. By the end of the third year, the Cole Ranch was turning a profit and earning a reputation for quality livestock. Willa discovered she was pregnant early in their 4th year together. She told Owen one evening after dinner, watching his face carefully for his reaction. "A baby," he said, his voice full of wonder. "We are going to have a baby." "Yes," Willa confirmed, and then found herself swept up in his arms as he spun her around the kitchen, both of them laughing. Their son was born in November of 1886, delivered by a midwife from Tucson while Owen paced outside, too nervous to sit still. When the midwife finally invited him in, and he saw Willa holding their baby, tears streaming down her face, he knew he was looking at the most beautiful sight he would ever see. "What should we name him?" Willa asked. They had discussed names but never settled on one. Now, looking at their son's tiny, perfect face, Owen said, "How about William? After his mother." "William Cole," Willa said, testing the name. "I like it. Billy for short." Billy was a happy baby, all smiles and curiosity. He grew quickly, and soon the house was filled with the sounds of his laughter and his first attempts at words. Willa had never imagined she could love anything as much as she loved Owen, but Billy proved her wrong. Her heart had simply expanded to hold more love than she had known was possible. When Billy was 2, Willa found herself pregnant again. Their daughter was born in the spring of 1889, a tiny perfect girl with Owen's blue eyes and Willa's dark hair. "Grace," Willa said the moment she saw her. "Her name is Grace because that is what she is." Owen sat beside the bed, holding Billy on his lap while both of them looked at the newest member of their family. "Grace Cole," he said. "Perfect." The years passed in a blur of work and joy and the ordinary challenges of building a life. The ranch continued to grow, eventually expanding to over 1,000 acres with several hundred head of cattle. They hired more hands, built more buildings, and became respected members of the ranching community. Billy grew into a serious boy who loved working with the horses, while Grace was more interested in the business side of things, always asking questions about money and profits and planning. Willa taught her everything she knew about keeping accounts and managing inventory, delighted to have someone who shared her interest in the organizational aspects of running a ranch. "She is going to be a force to be reckoned with," Owen said one evening, watching Grace explain to one of the ranch hands why his method of feeding the horses was inefficient. She was only 8 years old but already fearless in her opinions. "She gets that from her mother," Willa said with a smile. "True enough," Owen agreed, pulling Willa close. "Though I seem to remember her mother being pretty fearless herself, standing up to 3 men trying to force her into a marriage she did not want." "That feels like a lifetime ago," Willa said. "Like it happened to a different person." "In some ways it did," Owen said. "You are not the same frightened girl I met in Castle Dome, and I am not the same drifting cattle buyer. We have built something together, something real and lasting." "Do you ever regret it?" Willa asked. "Spending all that money to save a stranger, delaying your plans?" "Not for a single second," Owen said firmly. "Marrying you was the best decision I ever made. Everything good in my life comes from that choice." "Everything good in my life comes from you having the courage to step in when you did," Willa said. "You gave me the chance to choose my own path, and I chose you. I will always choose you." They kissed as the sun set over their land, and Willa thought about the journey that had brought them here. From that snowy morning in Castle Dome to this moment, standing on their own ranch with their children playing in the yard, it seemed impossible that it had all stemmed from one act of courage and kindness. When Billy turned 18, he announced his intention to start his own ranch further north. Owen gave him a dozen cattle and his blessing, and Willa tried not to cry as her son rode away to begin his own adventure. "He will be fine," Owen said, holding her as they watched Billy disappear over the horizon. "We raised him well." "I know," Willa said. "But that does not make it easier to watch him go." Grace stayed, taking over more and more of the ranch's day-to-day management as Owen and Willa grew older. She proved to be a brilliant businesswoman, expanding their operations and building relationships with buyers all over Arizona and New Mexico. Willa's father died when she was 43. She received a telegram from an old neighbor in Castle Dome letting her know that Thomas Wright had passed away in his sleep. The store had been sold years ago to cover his remaining debts, and he had been living in a boarding house, supported by charity. "You want to go back?" Owen asked. "For the funeral." Willa thought about it for a long time before answering. "No," she said finally. "I mourned the father I thought I had years ago. The man who died was a stranger to me." She felt a twinge of guilt at the words, but they were true. Whatever relationship she had once had with her father had died that snowy morning when he agreed to hand her over to the Hartwells. She had built a new life, a better life, and she could not let the past pull her back into old pain. On their 20th wedding anniversary, Owen surprised Willa with a trip to California. They left the ranch in Grace's capable hands and took the train west, watching the landscape change from desert to mountains to coastal valleys. When Willa finally saw the ocean for the first time, standing on a beach with her husband beside her and the sun setting over the endless water, she cried. It was everything she had imagined and more, vast and powerful and beautiful beyond words. "Thank you," she said to Owen, "for remembering." "I remember everything you have ever told me," Owen said. Every dream, every hope, every fear, knowing you has been the great privilege of my life." They spent a week by the ocean, walking on the beach and exploring the small coastal town before returning home to Arizona. The ranch was thriving under Grace's management, and Willa felt a profound sense of satisfaction, knowing that what they had built would continue long after they were gone. Billy came to visit regularly, usually bringing stories of his own adventures and challenges. He had married a woman named Sarah and had 3 children of his own. Grace remained unmarried, declaring that the ranch was her true love and she had no time for romance. "She is just like you," Owen said to Willa one evening as they watched Grace directing the ranch hands with the authority of a general commanding troops. "Smart, stubborn, and absolutely certain of what she wants." "I will take that as a compliment," Willa said. "It was meant as one," Owen assured her. As the century turned and the new age of 1900 arrived, Owen and Willa found themselves in their 40s, looking back on nearly 20 years of marriage and forward to whatever time they had left together. "Can you believe how far we have come?" Willa asked one evening. They were sitting on the porch of their house, the same porch they had built together all those years ago, watching the stars come out. "Sometimes it does not feel real," Owen admitted. "Like I am going to wake up and discover I am still that drifting cattle buyer with no roots and no real purpose. Then I look at you and our children and this ranch, and I know it is all real, more real than anything else in my life." "Do you ever think about that day in Castle Dome?" Willa asked. "About what would have happened if you had just ridden past without stopping?" "I think about it sometimes," Owen said, "but I do not dwell on it. We cannot change the past, and I would not want to. Everything that happened, good and bad, led us to here. To this moment, sitting together, having built a life we can be proud of. I wish I could go back and tell that frightened girl on the porch that everything was going to be okay," Willa said. "That the man riding toward her through the snow was going to change her entire life for the better." "She would not have believed you," Owen said with a smile. "She would have thought it was impossible." "She would have been wrong," Willa said. "Nothing is impossible. You taught me that." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, holding hands and watching the night sky. After all these years, they still found peace in each other's presence, still felt that spark of recognition and connection that had drawn them together from the beginning. Billy's oldest son, their grandson Thomas, came to live with them when he was 15, wanting to learn ranching from his grandparents. Willa found herself telling him stories about the early days, about building the ranch from nothing and all the challenges they had overcome. "You and Grandpa must love each other a lot," Thomas said one day after hearing about how Owen had paid off her father's debts. "We do," Willa confirmed. "But more than that, we respect each other. We are partners in every sense of the word. That is what makes a marriage work." "How do you know when you have found the right person?" Thomas asked. Willa thought about it. "You know because being with them feels like breathing," she said finally. "Natural and necessary. You know because they make you want to be better, stronger, braver. You know because when you look at them, you see your future and it does not scare you, it excites you." "That sounds nice," Thomas said wistfully. "It is," Willa said, "and someday you will find it too." When Owen turned 50, the whole family gathered at the ranch to celebrate. Billy came with his entire family, and even some of the ranch hands who had been with them from the beginning joined the festivities. They roasted a cow and set up tables in the yard, and as the sun set, Owen stood up to make a speech. "I am not much for fancy words," he began, looking a bit uncomfortable with all the attention. "But I want to say something about what this all means to me. 25 years ago, I was alone, drifting from place to place with no real purpose. Then I met a woman standing on a porch during a snowstorm, and everything changed. Willa, You have been my partner, my love, and my best friend. You have given me two incredible children and helped me build something that will last long after we are gone. Everything good in my life is because of you." Willa was crying by the time he finished, and when he sat back down beside her, she kissed him in front of everyone, not caring who saw. "I love you," she whispered. "Today, tomorrow, and always." "Always," Owen agreed. As the years continued to pass, they settled into the comfortable rhythm of a long marriage. They still worked hard, though they left more of the heavy labor to younger hands. They spent their evenings on the porch, talking about the day and making plans for the future. They took another trip to the ocean, this time bringing Grace with them, and watching their daughters wonder at seeing it for the first time was almost as good as experiencing it themselves. Owen's hair went gray, then white, and Willa found silver threads in her own dark hair. They moved a bit slower, tired a bit easier, but the fundamental connection between them never wavered. If anything, it grew stronger with time, tested and proven by years of working together toward common goals. When Willa turned 55, Grace organized a surprise party for her. The house was filled with family and friends, all gathered to celebrate. Willa was overwhelmed by the outpouring of love and affection by all the people whose lives she had touched over the years. "You are crying again," Owen said, handing her a handkerchief. "They are happy tears," Willa said. "I just cannot believe this is my life, that I get to have all of this." "You deserve all of this and more," Owen said. "You are the strongest, kindest, most remarkable person I have ever known, and I am grateful every single day that I got to build a life with you." As they danced together later that evening, Willa thought about the young woman she had been, standing on that porch in Castle Dome facing a future that looked bleak and hopeless. She thought about the courage it had taken to accept Owen's help, to leave everything familiar behind and venture into the unknown. She thought about all the choices she had made since then, large and small, that had led to this moment. "What are you thinking about?" Owen asked, reading her expression the way he always could. "How one moment can change everything," Willa said. "How one act of kindness can ripple out and affect so many lives. You saved me that day in Castle Dome, but you did more than that. You showed me what it means to be truly seen and valued. You gave me the chance to become the person I was meant to be." "You gave me the same thing," Owen said. "A purpose, a home, a reason to put down roots and build something lasting. We saved each other." They continued to dance, surrounded by their family and friends, and Willa felt a peace so profound it was almost physical. This was what happiness looked like. Not some distant dream or impossible fantasy, but this. Real, tangible, built one day at a time through love and work and commitment. Thomas, their grandson, married a local girl named Elizabeth when he was 23. They had a small wedding at the ranch, and watching them exchange vows, Willa was transported back to her own wedding day, to the church in Tucson and Owen's nervous smile, and the feeling that her whole life was beginning. "They remind me of us," Owen said, echoing her thoughts. "They do," Willa agreed, "young and hopeful and ready to take on the world." "We did take on the world," Owen said, "and we won." Grace eventually did fall in love, though she was 35 before it happened. His name was Marcus Rodriguez, grandson of the family who had given Willa her first job in Tucson. He was as passionate about ranching as Grace was, and when they married, they merged his family's cattle operation with the Cole Ranch, creating one of the largest ranching enterprises in Arizona. "I never thought I would see her this happy," Willa said to Owen, watching Grace and Marcus work together to plan the expansion of their combined operations. "She just needed to find someone who could match her," Owen said. "Someone who saw her strength as an asset rather than a threat." "Like you did with me," Willa said. Exactly like I did with you, Owen confirmed. They celebrated their 30th wedding anniversary with a small dinner, just the two of them, at a restaurant in Tucson. They stayed overnight at the same hotel where they had spent their wedding night, and lying together in the dark, Willa felt like no time had passed at all. Owen was still the man she had fallen in love with, and she was still the woman who had chosen him freely and completely. 30 years, Owen said, his voice full of wonder. Sometimes it feels like 30 days and sometimes it feels like forever. Forever in the best way, Willa said. I cannot imagine my life without you in it. I do not want to. You will never have to, Owen promised. We are bound together, you and I. Nothing can change that. As they moved into their 60s, they finally began to step back from the day-to-day operations of the ranch. Grace and Marcus had it well in hand, and Billy's operation up north was thriving as well. Willa and Owen spent more time traveling, visiting places they had always wanted to see, making memories while they still could. They went to San Francisco and marveled at the rebuilt city rising from the ashes of the great earthquake. They visited Santa Fe and walked through the old plaza, browsing the market stalls and eating food that reminded Willa of meals from her childhood. They even took a train back to Castle Dome, though the town was nearly abandoned by then, just a few stubborn holdouts refusing to admit that the boom times were never coming back. The store where Willa had grown up was boarded up, windows broken and paint peeling. Standing in front of it, Willa felt nothing but gratitude that her life had taken a different path. Thank you, she said to Owen, for riding into town that day, for seeing me, for giving me the chance to choose. Thank you for choosing me, Owen replied. For trusting me enough to take that chance. They did not stay long in Castle Dome. There was nothing there for them but memories, and they had built a whole life full of better ones elsewhere. On their 40th wedding anniversary, the entire family gathered at the ranch again. Billy and his wife, Grace and Marcus, all the grandchildren and even a few great-grandchildren. The yard was full of people and laughter and love, and Willa stood on the porch where it had all begun, looking out at everything they had created. Owen came to stand beside her, his hair white now and his face lined with age, but his eyes still the same brilliant blue that had caught her attention all those years ago. Quite a legacy, he said. Quite a life, Willa corrected. And I would not change a single moment of it. Not even the bad parts, Owen asked. The fear, the uncertainty, the times when we were not sure we would make it, not even those, Willa said. Because they led to this, to us, to everything we have built together. The hard times made the good times that much sweeter. They stood together, watching their family, and Willa thought about the young woman she had been and the journey that had brought her here. She thought about fear and courage, about the power of one person's kindness to change another person's entire world. She thought about love, real and true and lasting, the kind that weathered storms and grew stronger with time. I love you, she said to Owen, with everything I am and everything I will ever be. I love you too, Owen said. Always have, always will. As the sun set over the ranch, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, Willa and Owen Cole stood together, their hands clasped, their hearts full, looking out at the life they had built from nothing but determination and love. It was more than either of them had ever dreamed possible, and it was theirs, earned through years of hard work and unwavering commitment to each other. The snow had fallen that December day in 1881, cold and unexpected, bringing with it the darkest moment of Willa's life. But it had also brought Owen, riding through the storm like an answer to a prayer she had not known how to say. He had paid a price, not just in money but in trust and faith, believing that she was worth saving even when she had not believed it herself. And she had proven him right. building a life of purpose and meaning, raising children who would carry on their values, creating something that would last long after they were gone. She had taken the second chance Owen had given her and transformed it into a legacy of love and strength. As night fell and the stars came out, the family gathered around a bonfire in the yard, telling stories and singing songs. Willa and Owen sat together, surrounded by the people they loved most, and knew that this was what happily ever after really looked like. Not some fairy tale ending where everything was perfect, but a real life, full of challenges and triumphs, built day by day through love and partnership. Billy stood up to make a toast, raising his glass high. "To my parents," he said, his voice carrying across the yard. "Two of the strongest, most devoted people I have ever known. You taught us that love is not just a feeling but a choice you make every single day. You showed us that with courage and commitment, you can build something that will stand the test of time. Thank you for everything you have given us, and for showing us what a true partnership looks like." Everyone raised their glasses, and Willa felt tears streaming down her face again. These were her people, her family, her legacy. Everything she had feared losing that snowy morning in Castle Dome had been replaced 1,000 times over with something infinitely better. "To love," Owen said, raising his own glass. "To second chances. To the courage to choose your own path, and the wisdom to walk it with someone who makes you better." "To love," everyone echoed, and Willa clinked her glass against Owen's, meeting his eyes across the rim. They stayed up late that night, long after the children and grandchildren had gone to bed. The fire burned low, and the desert air grew cool, but neither wanted to move to break the spell of this perfect moment. "You remember what you said to me that first night?" Willa asked. "After you had paid the debt and we were sitting by the stove in the store." "I said a lot of things that night," Owen said with a smile. "Which part are you thinking about?" "You said I deserved a chance, same as anyone," Willa said. "And you were right. But more than that, you gave me that chance. You saw past the circumstances to the person underneath, and you believed I could be more than what life had tried to make me." "You were always more," Owen said. "I just helped you see it." "We helped each other see it," Willa corrected. "You gave me freedom and I gave you a home. We built something neither of us could have built alone." "The best partnerships are like that," Owen agreed. "Stronger together than either person could be separately." They sat in silence for a while, listening to the night sounds of the desert, the distant call of a coyote and the rustle of wind through the brush. This land had become theirs, as much a part of them as they were of it. They had shaped it with their labor and their vision, and it had shaped them in return, making them stronger and more resilient. "What do you think happens next?" Willa asked. "After all of this, more of the same, I hope," Owen said. "More sunrises and sunsets, more time with our family. More moments like this, where we can look at what we have built and feel proud." "That sounds good," Willa said. "That sounds perfect." They finally went inside as midnight approached, climbing the stairs to their bedroom with the familiar comfort of a routine performed thousands of times before. As Willa lay in Owen's arms, listening to his breathing slow and even out as he drifted towards sleep, she thought about how far they had come and how much they had overcome. Life had not been easy, but it had been good. Rich and full and meaningful in ways that money could never measure. She had loved deeply and been loved in return. She had raised children and built a home and created something that would outlast her physical presence in the world. She had taken the fragments of a broken life and assembled them into something beautiful and whole. "Thank you," she whispered into the darkness, not sure if she was talking to Owen or to fate or to whatever force had brought them together. "Thank you for everything." Morning came with its usual certainty, the sun rising over the mountains and painting the desert in shades of rose and gold. Willa woke to find Owen already awake, watching her with a soft smile. "Good morning," he said. "Good morning," Willa replied. "How long have you been awake?" "A while," Owen admitted. "I was just thinking about how lucky I am. Waking up next to you never gets old, even after 40 years. Willa teased. "Especially after 40 years, Owen said. "I know what a gift it is now. I do not take a single day for granted." They went about their morning routine, the small domestic rituals that had become second nature over the decades. Coffee and breakfast, discussion of the day's plans, the easy intimacy of two people who knew each other better than they knew themselves. Grace and Marcus came by mid-morning with news that they had just closed a major deal with a cattle buyer from Texas. The ranch was more prosperous than ever, and Willa felt a surge of pride knowing that their legacy was in such capable hands. "You two built something special here," Marcus said, looking around at the ranch with obvious admiration. "Not just a business, but a real home. A place where family comes first and people are treated with respect. That is rare." "It is what we always wanted," Willa said. "To create something that would last, that would mean something beyond just making money." "You succeeded," Grace said simply. "More than you know." Over the following years, as Willa and Owen moved deeper into their 60s and then their 70s, they continued to live fully and joyfully. They took shorter trips now, staying closer to home, but they still found adventure in the everyday. They read books together in the evening, discussed politics and current events, argued amiably about the best way to organize the kitchen cabinets. When Billy's wife Sarah died unexpectedly, they were there to support their son through his grief, drawing on their own deep well of love and understanding to help him navigate the loss. When Grace and Marcus had their first child at what many considered an advanced age, Willa and Owen celebrated with the enthusiasm of people who understood that joy comes when it comes, regardless of timing. The great-grandchildren began to arrive, bright-eyed babies who would carry the family forward into the new century. Willa held each one, marveling at the continuation of life, the way love multiplied and expanded across generations. "We did this," Owen said, watching Willa rock their newest great-grandchild, a little boy named Owen after his great-grandfather. "All of this started with us." "It started with you," Willa corrected gently. "With your courage to step in when you saw something wrong. With your willingness to give a stranger a second chance." "It started with both of us," Owen insisted. "With your courage to accept help, to trust a stranger, to take a risk on something unknown. We are a team, Willa. We always have been." On a warm spring evening when Willa was 78 years old, she and Owen sat on their porch as they had done thousands of times before. The ranch stretched out before them, green with spring growth, the cattle grazing peacefully in the distance. Their children and grandchildren were scattered across the property, the sounds of family life drifting on the breeze. "I have been thinking about something," Owen said. He was 82 now, moving slower but still sharp, still fully present. "What is that?" Willa asked. "About that day in Castle Dome," Owen said. "About the choice I made to stop and get involved. It was the best decision I ever made, but it was also the easiest. When I saw you standing there, facing down those men, I knew immediately what I had to do. There was never really a choice." "There is always a choice," Willa said. "You could have ridden past. Most people would have. You chose to be brave, to be kind, to put someone else's welfare ahead of your own plans. That is what makes you remarkable." "I was just doing what felt right," Owen said. "What my parents taught me. What any decent person would do." "But not everyone does it," Willa pointed out. "Most people look away. Most people decide it is not their problem. You did not do that, and it changed everything. It changed my life, and it changed yours, and it changed the lives of everyone who came after us. One moment of courage created all of this. Owen reached over and took her hand, his grip still strong despite his age. "I would make the same choice every time," he said. "1,000 times over I would choose you." "And I would choose you," Willa said. "Every single time for the rest of my life and beyond." They sat together as the sun set, painting the sky in brilliant colors, and Willa felt a contentment so complete it was almost transcendent. This was her life, the one she had chosen and built and fought for. It had not always been easy, but it had always been worth it. The years continued to pass, as years do, bringing changes both large and small. Technology advanced, the world modernized, but the fundamentals of their life remained constant. Love, family, hard work, commitment to something larger than themselves. These were the pillars on which they had built everything, and they remained solid even as the world around them changed. When Owen fell ill in his 87th year, Willa was beside him every moment. The doctors said his heart was simply wearing out, that at his age, there was little they could do except make him comfortable. The family gathered, everyone understanding that their time together was growing short. "Do not look so sad," Owen said to Willa one evening. They were alone in their bedroom, the house quiet around them. "We had a good run, you and I." "The best run," Willa said, her voice thick with tears. "But I am not ready to let you go." "I am not going anywhere," Owen said. "Not really. I will always be with you, Willa. In every sunrise over the ranch, in every laugh from our grandchildren, in every memory we made together. Love does not die. It transforms, but it does not die." "I love you," Willa said, "more than words can express." "I love you too," Owen said. "You made my life worth living. You made me better than I ever could have been alone. Thank you for saying yes all those years ago, and for continuing to say yes every day after that." He died peacefully 3 days later, surrounded by family, with Willa holding his hand. She felt the moment he left, felt the absence of him like a physical wound, but she also felt something else. Gratitude. For the years they had shared, for the love they had built, for the legacy they were leaving behind. The funeral was attended by hundreds of people, testament to the impact Owen had made on his community. Person after person came to Willa to tell her stories about her husband, about his kindness and fairness, and the way he had helped them in their own times of need. "He was like that," Willa said to each of them. "He saw someone in trouble and he helped. It was as simple as that." In the months that followed Owen's death, Willa grieved deeply but not hopelessly. She had loved and been loved, and that was more than many people ever got. She stayed on at the ranch, unwilling to leave the place they had built together, and found comfort in the routines they had established over decades of partnership. Grace and Marcus took over more of the day-to-day oversight, but Willa remained involved, offering advice and wisdom gained from years of experience. She spent time with her great-grandchildren, telling them stories about their great-grandfather and the early days of the ranch. She wanted them to know where they came from, to understand the sacrifices and choices that had made their lives possible. On what would have been their 55th wedding anniversary, Willa took a trip, alone, to the ocean. She scattered some of Owen's ashes in the waves, watching them disappear into the vast blue expanse, and felt a sense of completion. He had given her this dream, had made it possible for her to see the ocean for the first time, and now he was part of it forever. "Thank you," she said to the wind and the waves and the memory of the man she had loved. "Thank you for everything." She lived another 7 years, dying peacefully in her sleep at the age of 85. Her last thoughts were of Owen, of the morning he had ridden through the snow into Castle Dome and changed her life forever. She hoped, in whatever came after, that she would find him again, that they could continue the partnership that had defined both their lives. The ranch continued to thrive under the stewardship of subsequent generations, each one adding their own contributions while honoring the foundation laid by Willa and Owen. The story of how it all began became family legend, told and retold to children and grandchildren, a reminder that courage and kindness can change the world. Decades later, on the 100th anniversary of Owen paying off Thomas Wright's debt, the family gathered at the ranch for a celebration. They told the old stories, looked at faded photographs, and marveled at how far they had all come from that snowy morning in Castle Dome when a cowboy had made a choice to help a stranger. One of Willa and Owen's great-great-granddaughters, herself named Willa in honor of her ancestor, stood up to speak. "They showed us what love really means," she said, looking around at the assembled family. "Not some fairy tale romance, but real partnership, real commitment. The willingness to choose someone every single day and build a life together brick by brick. That is their legacy to us, and it is a precious gift." Everyone raised their glasses in a toast, and in that moment, it was almost possible to feel the presence of Willa and Owen, watching over the family they had started and the legacy they had created. They had taken a moment of darkness and transformed it into something brilliant and lasting. They had shown that one act of courage could ripple out across generations, that love freely chosen was stronger than any force in the world. The snow had fallen heavy and fast that December morning in 1881, bringing with it both crisis and salvation. A young woman had faced the loss of everything, and a cowboy had chosen to help. From that simple beginning, from that one moment of connection and courage, had come a love story for the ages. A story of partnership and respect, of building something meaningful together, of choosing each other again and again through all the challenges life could offer. It was a story worth remembering, worth passing down, worth celebrating. Because at its heart, it was a story about the power of second chances, about the way one person's kindness could transform another person's entire world. It was a story about hope and resilience, and the enduring strength of love freely given and freely received. And it was a story that, in the end, had a happy ending. Not because everything was perfect, but because two people had found each other in the midst of a storm and had chosen to build something beautiful together. They had lived fully and loved deeply, and left behind a legacy that would continue long after they were gone. That was the true measure of their love, not in grand gestures or dramatic declarations, but in the steady accumulation of days and years spent in partnership, working toward common goals and supporting each other through every challenge. They had shown that love was not just a feeling but an action, a choice made new each morning, a commitment honored through both easy times and hard. The ranch stood as testament to their vision, but their true legacy was in the hearts of the people who came after them, who carried forward the values they had exemplified. Courage, kindness, partnership, respect, and above all, the willingness to choose love even when it would have been easier to walk away. From a moment of desperation in a snowstorm had come something remarkable and enduring. From the ashes of a young woman's broken life had risen something strong and beautiful. All because a cowboy had paid a debt and asked for nothing in return except the chance to know her better. All because a woman had had the courage to accept help and trust in the possibility of something better. Their story was one of redemption and transformation, of two people finding each other at exactly the right moment and building something that would outlast them both. It was a love story in the truest sense, not because it was easy or simple, but because it was real and honest and built on a foundation of mutual respect and genuine partnership. And in the end, That was what made it worth celebrating, worth remembering, worth passing down through the generations. Not the drama of how it began, but the steadfast devotion with which it continued, year after year, decade after decade, until their love had become woven into the very fabric of the land itself and the family they had created. The snow had fallen that December morning in Castle Dome, Arizona, bringing with it the possibility of disaster. But it had also brought Owen Cole riding into Willa Wright's life, and from that meeting had come everything else. A love story that began with an act of courage and continued through a lifetime of dedication. A partnership that transformed two individual lives into something greater than either could have been alone. A legacy that would continue long after they were gone. Proof positive that love, real and true and freely chosen, was the most powerful force in the world.